The button on the Zoom. All right. We are live. Live Coding Happy Hour is on the air. I am Dave Slusher. I'm a developer evangelist with ServiceNow. I work in the platform business unit, and if you go to developer.servicenow.com, that's kind of my purview. And with me are my colleagues, Chuck. Introduce yourself, sir.
All righty. Thanks, Dave. I am Chuck Tomasi, platform architect in the solution consulting field. I've been with ServiceNow for about 6.5 years, 30 years of industry experience. You can read all about it on LinkedIn if you want.
All right. And my other colleague, Josh.
And my name is Josh Nerius. I'm a developer evangelist. I also work with Dave in the platform business unit. And like he said, second plug for developer.servicenow.com. It's awesome stuff.
Not have too many plugs for developer.servicenow.com. All right. We're going to do a little bit of an overview about what we're doing here, because we realized it was brought up a few minutes ago that we haven't really given the elevator pitch of this particular program in a while. So Live Coding Happy Hour is really the three of us kind of basically working through code as the name implies live. It originally was founded when several of us were putting together a slick demo, and we realized that everything we cut out of the slick demo was actually of at least as much value as the slick demo itself. And so he said, because as a working ServiceNow developer, you're going to need to understand kind of how to deal with, the slick demos are all sunny day cases, and that is not how anyone's developer life goes. So kind of dealing with edge cases and problems and kind of fighting your way through it is part of the job and part of the fun. So that's what we do here. So we're going to take some real live actual code problems for an actual app I'm actually working on and go forward with that. And with that said, let's discuss the happy hour part of Live Coding Happy Hour. Chuck, what are you drinking?
I have an omission lager from Widmer Brothers. It is a very plainly labeled thing, and we'll see how it goes.
And Josh?
I have a Goose Island Autumn 2016 Experimental, which basically means that it doesn't have a real name yet. It might be good, it might be terrible. It's an amber, so see how this goes.
Does it have a style at least?
It is an amber, at least I know that much.
And you notice that Josh thinks global and drinks local. I'm drinking a Ballast Point. I'm actually violating kind of my rule. I usually drink very little Ballast Point at home because when I go to San Diego, we usually go to Ballast Point itself and drink a lot of Ballast Point. But I'm drinking a Dead Ringer Oktoberfest because I was just in the mood for it. Oh, let me get it on camera. There you go. All right. So beer out of the way. I'll start working on the sharing. Actually, if one of you guys want to talk a little bit, I have a hard time working the share and talking at the same time.
I know the feeling. Well, it's I believe this is the last one we'll do for a couple of weeks, so I'm going to jump ahead to the end of the show. Thanks, it's been nice. But just want to give everybody fair warning that the holidays are coming up, and it's going to make doing these on Fridays particularly interesting over the next few weeks. So don't expect this every Friday. Look for the announcements on Twitter with the hashtag LCHH, or what was the other one? Live coding that we're using now?
Yeah, LCHH is kind of specifically for this one, and live coding is more of a general one to kind of help with discoverability. So
there we go.
Yeah, so if you're looking specifically for Live Coding Happy Hour, just look for LCHH. You should find this, and if you follow any of us, I'm sure you'll see it in some way, shape, or form coming through on one of your many feeds.
All right. Okay. Looks like we are, in fact, up and sharing, and everybody should see my screen. Is it big enough to be readable? I think I've got it kind of zoomed in from last time.
It looks good to me. Okay.
So what we did last week, we were working with the FlightAware API, and let me just go ahead and quickly show that. Actually, this is actually the better view. I never knew what this Flight XML Explorer was, and then I clicked it, and I thought, oh, it's a much more readable view of the API doc. So I'm going to use that from here on out. So FlightAware is a commercial API, not a free API, that gives you real-time flight information. So statuses about flights worldwide. What we've been doing is integrating with their web API for an application I call Travel Tracker. What I'm trying to do is get real-time status information back into my instance. And so last week we did just some interesting initial stuff where we can take what we have about a flight, which is its origin, its destination, its time, and its flight number, and we could get from the API what its unique identifier with the API is. So all of that was preamble to get to what we really want. The other thing we did was we created a scripted REST API to accept the webhook calls from FlightAware. That was kind of the meat of that.
So cool.
So now what you can do is register with FlightAware that you have an endpoint that you want them to call with their status updates. And we figured out the format of what they push out to you. And then we figured out how to take that, parse it, and then put it back into our record. So the table is kind of set for all that work to happen. And let me quickly show you. Let me show you the actual scripted REST API. This is what we did last week. We created this endpoint, accept status. And so when they push us data, we do a little bit of information. We get the request body, and this is the JSON of all that flight information that they have sent us. And we do some stuff with it, and then we save it back to the record. And we got all this stuff working last week. That was last week. So now what we want to do is we want to try to push this ball forward to actually getting in real live flight information into our system today. So what we're going to do, step one, and I did this one because it's a little bit boring stuff. I just created a REST message that all it does is register the endpoint. And this is what it does right now. This is in fact hard coded. Ultimately, what this needs to be is we need to be able to do some parameterization, because you want to register your own endpoint. So we want to get the instance name in there. But in fact, what it's doing now is just up here in the HTTP request, it's just giving hard-coded values to my endpoint. And this thing we joked about last time, JSON post, which you have to, is a required parameter that you can never change to anything but this. But weird, but it exists. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to do the set alert. And so we did one of these last week where we did it kind of by hand by just loading this. Also worth noting, a kind of interesting thing about this API, I do believe every single thing here is a GET request. There are no posts into Flight XML, which is kind of makes a little bit of sense, because you don't have a status, right? It's basically a data read API.
Right.
So it's not like you have records that you're updating or anything like that. The only one that seems a little bit weird is this register alert endpoint. It seems to me like that might be appropriate to be a post, because it's kind of a thing like that, but it doesn't hurt my feelings that it's a GET.
Dave, can you make that font just a little larger?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it does hurt my feelings, by the way. I just have to say.
You think it should be a post?
Anything that modifies data should be a post, or a put. Or
I don't disagree with that, but that's I can also understand when you have 95% of your API is GET. I can kind of understand not wanting to introduce the first put or post. I can see the case for that. So anyway, I'm not going to argue their architecture. So what we want to do now is we talked it over, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a script include to do this thing. So now, given register alert endpoint, the next thing we want to do is set alert. So this is what we're going to. So register alert endpoint just says, here's what you're going to call when you have data for me. And now we're going to say, this is a thing I want data for. So we're going to implement this, and we're going to do it. We kind of took a vote, and we're going to do it. We're not going to create a REST message on here. We're going to do it entirely programmatically. So we have a script include that already exists, and we'll put it in FlightAware Utils. So for right now, again, everything we ever do in here is kind of a candidate for refactoring later. We're mostly just trying to get things in and working, and then once it's in and working, we'll figure it out. All right, so let us say we want to set, let's just call it set alert. Create a function, and we have to think about what parameters we want to pass it. At a minimum, we need a flight ID. And so I'm going to call it ident. One of the things about here is, and this is another thing about this thing, is we can pass in ident, and it can be two things. It could be AA6301, or it could be that unique identifier. And this parameter is reused. I kind of wish it wasn't, but it is what it is. So let's call it ident. Is one parameter that we take. And then we have to think, like for our purposes, that would be enough. We could just give it that unique identifier and it could register that, because this whole other thing before was about this right here, this previous function up here is about getting the unique identifier. So you get this thing, the FA flight ID. So given that we have that flight ID, that could be enough. We might want to build in the ability right here, this alert ID. If you pass that, you'll get a unique integral identifier for the specific alert you have registered. So it might be worth passing it in. As they say in the doc here, if it's 0, it will create a new alert. Otherwise, and it says specify -1 to upsert an alert. I don't know what that means. I hope that's a typo.
I'm thinking maybe it means that if you have an existing alert out there that matches that ident, that it would merge them or something like that.
I have never in my life seen the word upsert. I don't
like frenemy.
I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know.
So my understanding of upsert is basically it's one statement that will either insert or update something. It'll insert if it's not there. Update if it is. Yeah.
I did not. I was not aware of that.
It's a weird word. I don't like that word, but that's my understanding of it.
It's the side record update method. Create it if you need it, but otherwise update it.
Well, it makes sense now that you tell me that. But how have I avoided ever hearing that word? Okay.
Now he's going to start using it all the time to sound cool.
That
I don't know if that sounds cool.
Yeah, I don't know if we might have different definitions of cool. All right, so let's look at this quickly. We have 2 ways of going here. We could either parameterize the channels you pass in, or we could maybe hide that from the calling thing and say, we're just going to handle that. I'm thinking, really, the only reason to parameterize it is because we might want to change it from use to use. And so, like, there's a bunch of optional, like, almost all this stuff is optional. We can pass airport codes. We can pass aircraft types, but we're not going to. We could say optional starting date of the alert. We could tell it what day to start.
So will that essentially filter it out to say only alert during this time frame?
Yeah, so we could say don't alert me until like 1 day before.
Got it.
Or something like that. So don't start giving me the alerts now. Don't give them to me until the day of the flight. Something like that. We could do that. I think for now we're just going to let's just do alert ID and ident. We can always
get the base level thing working first.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So now you guys are going to have to help me through this. Josh is, we huddled up, and instead of creating a REST message, we're going to do this entirely programmatically because we think that will be fun to show. And I've never done it this way, so that's kind of when we do these. That's a lot of times how we decide. It's like, all right, let's do the thing none of us have ever done, or the thing I haven't done before.
And a little bit of background on that too. So if anyone's ever created a REST message and you use those templates, you fill them out, you put in an endpoint, you put in your configuration parameters. That can be great if you're testing things out. But once you actually then get into your code, if you're calling a really simple endpoint like this, where all we're doing is passing 2 parameters, it's just another thing to have to deal with. It's another place to have to manage data. So we can do this in a much easier way without even using
parameters like into the endpoint. If you're constructing a unique endpoint based on the variables you're putting in, you can't do it if it's hard coded, so to speak, into that record.
Exactly. Yeah. So I tend to try to use recordless or scripts only REST messages whenever I can. That's just my personal preference. But not everybody even realizes that this is there. I think it's newer. It's only been there for a couple of releases.
And because I've done this, so there's a certain amount of preamble to that. So we see in our, I'm going to go ahead and just copy this whole thing. So you can see that I have called this alert, from my browser before, so I have them in my history. What I should do probably is take this part and put this. I'm going to cut all this off and put it in Evernote for 1 second, because our API doc is telling us, it's telling us the calls, but everything up to this point, I always blank on because I always forget the format of everything that gets you to that call. All right, so let me go back to.
And when you get to Studio, I did notice we need to add something.
Okay.
I did too. We'll see if we saw the same thing, Chuck.
This is more than pair programming. This is triple pro. I don't know what you call it.
We
triple program. Okay, so we're going to. So this is our message. All right. What thing did I omit here?
Line 34, where you've got your var rest message equals new rest message v2. You need a prefix to scope that. It's sn_ws dot.
Okay.
There you go.
Perfect. Thank you, gentlemen. Formatting is going to bug me. Let's get this up here. Oh, just because it's wrapping. That's why it's doing that weird thing. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do a temporary. I'm going to temporarily pull this out
and
make it. Well, I'm just going to do this for 1 second so that I can.
Well, and at some point, this is something you want to put in a system property, which in this case we don't need to, but.
It's going to do that every time I do. All right, I have no choice.
Make your variable name RM. Maybe that'll do it. Instead of rest message. Or that. Actually, that's even better.
Oh, the smart quotes. They drive me nuts sometimes.
Oh, yeah, me too. All right. Well, let's make this endpoint. Not picking our poison because
something's going to wrap. It's just a question of what.
Yeah, exactly.
You got like 2 lines in there. Something's wacky. Why is there no... Okay. There was no line number a second ago.
It's all the one line. It's the overflow of that one line. Okay. Okay.
The comma after your set alert. Last curly brace.
Okay. All right. So now we're building out the REST message. We're passing in the ident, and let me double check back in the API and set alert. This is the thing we were talking about before, the list of channels. These are channels are their term for essentially the type of event that you're following. This is the thing you're subscribing to. You could subscribe to only, let's say you had a thing that just monitored canceled flights. It could do this and say, only tell me canceled. That's the only event I care about. But in this case, I think filed, and filed basically means, it's set. So I think that probably means like filed with the FAA, that your flight plan is in there. So that means that now it's like real. Your flight is real, and we've established your times. So filed, departure, arrival, diverted, canceled. I'd like to know all those. So we're going to do that. I'm going to leave off the 16. We did the 16 last time. I'm going to actually take it out of here because I don't know what the 16 is. I don't know. I wish that was not in there.
You don't know what it does.
You're not supposed to know.
I'm just going to pass it this string.
Also, while you're typing that in, Andrew had a great thing to call something that's not pair programming. It is Triforce programming.
Ooh.
Triforce programming. Okay.
Yeah.
Must be a reference to something I don't get because I'm old.
Sounds cool.
The Legend of Zelda.
Wow. It is a reference to something I don't get. We separated the men from the boys here.
Hey, that's an old... that game's been around for a long time.
Take it as a compliment, Josh.
You separated the men from the older men. All right. Okay, so now ident we want, and we have... let's go ahead and set... We're going to pass in alert ID. So now what we're going to do is... we want to start taking that REST message.
Yep.
And we've set the endpoint, and now we're going to set parameter, right? Set query parameter.
A couple more things. You're right.
So ident. We're going to do three of them. We're going to set alert ID. One thing that, let's think about this while we're doing this now. The data typing of the alert ID, we're going to be basically, we can send in 0, we can send in empty string, and either one of those will be the same as create a new one. Do we want to do any kind of checking around this? Do we want to look for?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I was talking over you.
Ideally, yes.
What kind of thing?
We should be doing a lot of data scrubbing and checking in most of our scripts that we don't.
But so are we going to assume that this is where weak typing in JavaScript really kind of so I'm trying to think through the weak typing issues. If we were a strong type, I would say this is an int, right? And so we know it's either 0 or not 0, but we don't know what it is. we could make it a kind of a part of the contract of this script alert that this is a type, that is 0 or that it's an integral type. I think maybe we can blindly put it in, but this is a thing. Let's kind of put a pin in the idea that we want to examine that a little bit.
Yeah,
right?
minimally, I'd say check if it's undefined, and if it's undefined, then you set it to what was it 0 to create a new one.
Mhm.
I like that. Okay.
Also, on your second parameter there, I think it's alert underscore ID all lowercase.
Oh yeah, this is me. This is me doing my. It was painful to watch me get the parameters wrong as I did the recap last week. Alert ID, absolutely correct. It's probably the kind of thing that's only painful if it's you. Like nobody else cares, but when you watch yourself doing it, it's like, oh no. All right, so alert ID. So let's do that. I want to do something in here. Let's just do that right up front. If alert the equals undefined, or is it type of undefined?
I would just say if not alert ID. That'll catch a whole bunch of sins.
Will the alert ID ever be 0?
Could be 0.
Because if it could be 0, then this will be a falsy return, and we may not like what that does. What about gs.nil?
Can't use it. I thought that was a JS or GS?
GS.
You're using the Java. Oh, gs.nil.
Yeah, it's part of Glide System now, and it's kind of like all lowercase. And basically, it'll just be like, it's a function, so you can pass in alert ID. So if gs.nil...
There it is.
ID.
Yep.
Alert ID equals... I'm assigning it.
Yeah, no, not a comparison. Alert ID is the parameter to gs.nil.
Yeah, so you'll pass alert ID into it. Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. I gotcha. All right, that's kind of upside down from the Ruby on Rails way or the Ruby way of doing it. If that's the case.
Well, and a lot of the objects have a method on them, so you can do .nil, but since it's a variable you're passing in, you can't guarantee that.
Right. It could be a primitive type. We just don't know. Okay, so I like that. If that's the case, then let's make it 0. We make it 0. All right, taken care of. All right, I'm happy with all that. All right, I'm good with that. And like I said, I want to get rid of that 16 because it's cryptic and I don't know what it means. And with that, I think we're good on everything here.
Not quite yet.
Ooh, okay. So let's say, okay. What are you seeing?
You would have made a mistake.
Oh, I haven't called it. I didn't actually execute this.
Well, yeah, that and do you need to set any headers, any request headers?
I don't believe I have to do any header.
Accept or content type?
I don't believe I have to do any. I didn't do any on the other one when I did it by a REST message.
I learned that very painfully. I spent probably most of Sunday night and most of Monday haggling over why my REST message worked fine in, what was I trying, Josh? I tried it on the Google API Explorer. I tried it on, what's the Chrome built-in one?
Postman.
It worked fine on Postman. It worked fine on Google. Didn't work on PAW. Didn't work in ServiceNow. Came down to the fact that I was missing a message header. That's it.
And some things were probably defaulting to add it or something like that.
Your format is all whacked. It's like you're missing the end time on a date. And I'm like, no, there's my JSON object. And it turns out I didn't say, this is JSON coming at you.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, let's go ahead. So we got the response. Let's go ahead and just do this. Here's debug. Let's log it and let's go and call this. So the response should be something like a there's another thing we did wrong. And response is going to be an object. Do I need to do anything to response to make it readable?
Yes. Get body.
Right. Response dot get body. Okay.
Yeah. Response will have other things. You can do things like get error codes and error messages and things like that. But
guys, remember. So now I spot the other problem we had. Do you remember? You know what the other problem is?
What did we miss?
Not an open API.
Oh yeah, authentication.
Oh yeah, we were talking about that before the
We
show.
were just talking about it. And we could set basic auth. I'm not going to do that because then I don't want to show the password in clear text on a screen share. However, we can set profile, right? What's the...
Is it set authentication profile or set... Is it not in the
It's not in
autocomplete?
here. That's what I was saying before.
Oh, you're right.
okay,
You're right.
Okay.
It's complete, but it is documented in the API.
Set authentication profile. Okay.
Shame.
And what does that
Nice.
string type mean? So
It's going to be either this is going to be either basic or OAuth.
Oh, okay, perfect.
It's a hard string.
That makes sense.
And
And that
this-
answers whether or not because I had never seen it used with a basic authentication profile. So this is cool.
What the heck did I just do there?
You
What
paste the same
quotes?
thing again. Your programmer's friend came back to bite you. It's now your programmer's
All
friend.
right. So the thing we're doing here, which I say I was actually had the foresight to save, which is surprising. I got the sysid in my auth profile earlier. So one of the we discussed various ways of doing this, whether we wanted to set a system property with the username and password. But because I had the authentication profile and I'm already using it, on the other calls, it's happening over here. Like I'm using that on here already, right? We've got the authentication profile. It exists and it's already associated. So we decided since it's there, let's go ahead and use it here.
And the nice thing about this is most of these methods align with the fields on the form. So if you can't remember them, just go back to your form and look at it and say, what would I have filled out if I was filling out that form? I need an endpoint. I need headers. I need an authentication type.
Right.
And it corresponds to the methods pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So at this point, this looks like this should be our first. This looks like this ought to be a conceivably runnable version.
You somehow swiped left for something.
Did I? What happened?
Get your naked desktop.
Okay. Let's see. I don't see anything different. Let me.
I see your Dave's screen actually. Weird.
Oh, maybe it was mine.
You're like, you swiped left. This is what happens when we drink while we do this.
Oh, well, I didn't touch anything. It's on a totally different computer.
All right. So now what we're going to do, I'm going to quick run back to my instance. And let us pull up. One of the problems when you do this, I'm sure this happens to all of us, is tab creep.
Mm-hmm.
You realize I've got the same thing in the tab, like you can never find the tab you're looking for, so you end up opening tabs over and over and over again.
And if you get too many tabs, they get so small you start closing them instead of selecting them.
Yeah. All right. So this is what you see last week. This is the where we had it actually pulling down the flight times from the API. So that actually happened last time. So what we're going to do is we just want to register the endpoint. And you know what I did not do? Ugh. I should have done this ahead of time. I apologize to everyone. I'm going to go to AmericanAirlines.com.
Let's go book some travel.
We're going to go to my favorite example, which is
LAX to San Diego.
LAX to San Diego. It's perfect for our uses here.
So it's like one every 15 minutes.
And today, so we want to find, it is 5, so it's 2 o'clock in, so this one, AA3014. And if we go and create ourselves an AA3014, and I probably could have figured that out because I should have been able, actually, I don't know what I'm...
Here from last week. It is. Just update the date.
So I'm just going to do an insert and stay on this guy. All right.
Funny how those airlines run on a schedule, isn't it?
All right. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to literally do nothing but change the date.
Unless they're departing from O'Hare.
Oh, boy.
Then there's no schedule.
There's no schedule.
All right. Then I'm going to do an insert. All right. So we have an... Oh. Now that shouldn't have happened. Yeah, I have seen this error around doing this stuff. One of these weird errors, I think it has to do with my workflow.
Oh, interesting. Weird.
But yet there it is.
All right, yeah, right. It errored on creating it, but it's still there. Now, let's see. Oh, look at that. It populated its flight ID.
Nice.
Oh, I love it.
That deserves a drink right there. That is nice.
Oh, it's still working from last week. I was worried. So, yeah, I'm going to pause for 1 second for a drink.
And while you're taking a drink, by the way, The Legend of Zelda was released in 1986. Just had to throw that out there. There's been a little bit of chatter about this in the chat rooms, and so I'm
It's
not
always
gonna let this one go.
It's always stuff like that that inflames people's passions. We're sitting here beating our brains out on REST messages, and they want to talk Zelda. All right, so we've got the flight ID. So what we want to do is we want this guy. So let's figure this out. We want to call the set alert. We want to call it with. Well, let me go back over here. I'm going to call it with this identifier. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to put it in Evernote so I don't lose it, which I probably will anyway. All right, so that's the one that's in the one that we're working on. And of course, now we're going to open another tab. Need scripts background.
Something I've started doing for this is going to sys.scripts.do, and then you have a nice script window that's not tied to the rest of the UI.
Well, let's do that.
Or you could use explore.
I could use explore.
No underscore, just a dot.
Oh.
Sys.scripts.do.
I started using explore for the same reason. It's like, hey, I can test my code in a separate window.
What the huh?
You have underscores in there. You want no underscores, just dots. Sys.scripts.do. Yep.
Okay. All right. So now what we're going to do, we're going to call this guy. So we need a FlightAware Utils. FlightAware Utils. And this is a pattern, I haven't really examined this pattern. And a lot of stuff that we do this over and over. We just create the utils, whatever, which I guess I'm fine with.
It's not a bad starting point. I have spent some time a few times when an app has gotten too big, going back and trying to figure out, is there a way to break this up? Should I get rid of the word utils or helper or handler?
I finally wrote my first multi-script include application. It has 5 different script includes. One of them was just because it's got an Ajax call in it, but the other 4 were it kept them nice and small, and they were used at different points in the process. This one's used for parsing. This one's used for output. This one's used for filtering, and it kept it a lot more manageable. Yeah, I could have all gone into one, save the Ajax one, but it's not a bad thing to think about ahead of time. Is can I make this more process centric? Are the functions mutually exclusive, or do they have to start calling each other?
Mm-hmm.
I go ahead and open the logs now. Oh, was this the problem I saw a minute ago?
Looks
Some
like
sort of weird jelly issue.
Yeah.
I'm not going to worry about this right now. Not going to worry about that. So what we're going to do is over here in scripts background, we're just going to call this. So the only thing our script include is doing is hitting the endpoint, registering us, and then putting the response back into. Why am I not also just echoing it to the screen? Add info message, same thing. Why be obscure? Let's do that. All right.
Updated. Assume you want to return the alert ID so you can repurpose that later?
Yeah, that's absolutely. We'll parse that, but I don't actually know the format of the JSON right now. So we're going to do this and look at the JSON and then see what we got.
A 1 and a 2 and
got response.
Nothing. You got no.
All right. I didn't get anything. Got response.
API grants.
You notice all our cross-scope scripting stuff.
Yeah. Yep. So that went through.
Privileges.
So at this point, you probably want to use the get. I think it's get status and get error message.
Okay. Yeah. Let's do that.
And yeah.
Status code. Let's do var. see what the it's not gonna. I was gonna.
Bar
I was
response dot. There you go.
I was hoping it would autocomplete so I could figure out what the thing I was doing before I named it. Get error message. All right, and let's do.
Throw them in the pot.
Status. Not gonna be too fancy. We're just gonna throw them in there. I am doing that in the add info message, right? Okay. All right, let's update that and try this again. This time we see 0. All right. Please don't. My daughter loves a sad trombone more than anything, and I get so tired of hearing it.
Really? Okay, then I have to.
All right. Let's see. I'm going to come over here. So we got response. I was just looking for something weird in here. I don't see anything weird in here.
Yeah, I feel like there might be some additional status methods we can call, because I know. So there's one that's there
was a error code.
Yeah, there's error message and error code, and I think.
So we get error.
Oh! I think I know what's going on.
What's going on?
We did not set the method of our request.
Get! I was going to say that earlier. I can't believe I missed it. Okay. Like I said, imagine all the fields on the form that you're setting up.
Exactly.
Good call. That was another one where somebody's screaming at their screen going, "You didn't do a set HTTP method."
And so method is a string. All right. So I'm assuming capital get.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think I've done both, and I think it worked both ways, but capital get feels right.
Nice call. Let's try that again.
Oh,
nope.
Invalid channel ID specified, e-filed.
All right. So I may have.
Let's look at the API. They're not comma separated or anything, are they? You copied them right from the site.
But I took that 16 out. You know what I'm going to do? I don't know why that's there. Oh, you know what? All this time, they let's go look at this for 1 second. Where they say, at this time, the channel ID should always be specified as 16. I missed this line in here. You guys. Guys. Man. I love you, but channels argument, tickle style screen. So target channel ID and triggering. Okay, so this is so the 16 is important. That is a target channel ID for. I don't know exactly what that means. All right, so 16. I needed to just put everything in there. So the 16 is the one thing that has to be there. And the one thing that was not, because I thought I was cleaning it up, and in fact I broke it. All right, so
someone must be a fan of Marine Band Radio and start on channel 16.
Maybe. I'm still gonna say some sort of bitwise shift ended up with that. All right, we're gonna do this again. We have moved the ball down the field. Are we there? We are there.
Oh yeah.
Hey.
So at this point, now here, right? So we did it. We got this, and so now we know. Now we know what to get out of the response, right?
Take a drink.
Don't mind if I do. So we've got that. So let's go ahead, and while we're in here, let's crack that out of the response. Is it going to be get response get body, and that's JSON object, right? And then I'm going to dereference this way. Going to be this, or is it going to be like a get value? How do I want to get that out of the thing that's get body?
At this point, you want, I think, just a JSON.parse on response to get body. So
that's what I would have done.
It was not an implicit.
No, I don't think it is. I don't think that this is automatically doing any sort of parsing. So do a.
I want to just get variable
because you're using it 3 times now. You should have it in a variable.
True.
True.
Var body equals response.getBody, and then JSON equals, well, maybe call something other than JSON because it gets weirdly ambiguous when you call JSON.parse.
Yeah, a common notation I've seen is var body equals response.getBody.
Oh, so you're saying just do the body here.
Do the body,
and then
just your object, whatever it is.
And I want to do JSON.
On the parse body.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead and get rid of this, and we'll just call that body. So we've already parameterized. And all right, so then my I'm just going to go ahead and
You want to return JSON?
alert separate it from this. So I want to have a different. This is getting a little crazy, but let's call it response alert ID equals JSON
Dot. What was it? Set alert ID. Something. It was on your output screen.
This set alert result.
Okay.
That's it.
Cool.
Now we will. And
You return that?
return it in 1 second. I'm also going to log it. Alert.
This is the quiet part.
This is where I need you guys to.
I was just
someone else to tap dance. All right. Yeah. Actually, now I'm almost done. Change that to.
our attention is so focused. We're completely engrossed in watching you type, Dave.
We are riveted.
All right. So that should be. Let's go ahead and update that and just run it one more time. It's probably, and I actually don't know. Let's for fun. 643 is what this one ended in. We're essentially calling the same thing with the same parameters. Are we going to get the identical? Are we going to get a second copy, or are we going to get the same thing? That's
if you pass in a -1, I think you'll get the same thing. If you pass in a 0, I think you'll get a new thing.
Oh.
I'm willing to test that hypothesis. Let's try it.
We should be testing. Got response error. Syntax error on line near. Ugh.
The what?
The -1. The -1 freaked it out.
Wasn't that a valid?
Out of curiosity, let's go see. Rerun the same thing with 0.
It was create a new one. Yeah.
0 worked. So -1 made that break. So now let's take a second and see why would -1 make that freak out.
Is this another weird falsy thing where it thinks that gs.nil is
so
-1?
gs.nil of -1 freaks it out?
I don't know. It shouldn't.
Well,
I can't imagine that it would, but we can try. Just throw in gs.nil in your background script.
heard it here first. We're breaking coverage of gs.nil. It didn't error out here.
What does it return?
Yeah, print what it's returning. No, can't use print in a scope.
Oops.
Debug.
False.
Yeah, so it's not nil, so that should be fine.
Should be fine. So why would -1 freak it out?
Freaked out the API because it came back with a status 200, but that text was all from the other end.
Was it though? Because it looked like a ServiceNow.
You had a status code of 200 on that.
Oh, hey, I got an idea here. Let's do this. Alert ID.
Oh, you know what? I also wonder, because we're somewhat naively just going off and trying to parse the JSON body, perhaps we're trying to parse something that's not there.
Well, let's try it one more time. So I don't want to necessarily, the hill I want to die on is not necessarily this -1 business.
Is it dying time? Oh, we got 15.
FlightAware Utils got response error. So that is actually...
That's their problem.
Their problem. You know what we're seeing? We're seeing like a cross-site scripting type problem. Look at this. I think we're looking at their sequel.
That's a little scary.
or you know, I see. I mean, doesn't it look like that's in their guts of their API?
It looked pretty bowelish.
Yeah,
All right,
that's super weird.
All right, I'm done with that. But we did the 0 before. We did it with a 0, and it worked just fine. So I actually had never played with GSNL, so that's good. We're gonna go ahead and do that. So we actually have registered this 3 times.
Yep.
Let me see. So it's 2:15. 2:15. So that flight is in error. And it's not going to. Oh, this always the problem is it's not going to land until after we're done here. I don't want to stick around long enough, but I do want to look and see. Just did we get anything? Have we gotten anything on this?
Next week we'll pick a flight that lands during our demo.
That will be, or the next time we do it. Yeah. I don't see. Because we are doing GSDebug logging from the REST API.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I have not seen that API. Now, I will also tell you guys that I went and looked afterwards. So we had done the thing where I registered the endpoint, by going to direct URL last time, and I did not see input from the FlightAware API. So now let's kind of talk through what tools do we have to debug. So we do everything. We've got an alert ID, and we don't see the data hitting our endpoint. So now, what do we have to diagnose with? That's actually a really sticky problem, right?
It's a very sticky problem.
Because it's their webhook.
Yeah.
So
I think the best you can do is probably try to definitively find a flight that you know is going to absolutely land at a certain time. So you should be getting responses back. And if nothing's coming back, maybe use one of those third-party tools like Mockbin or RequestBin. Set that as the endpoint.
Here, let's go ahead and do that right now. So we had mentioned it. We didn't actually use it. Let's go ahead and set a request bin as we're doing this now. So we're going to create a new request bin. And let me go through, and unfortunately, because I had to restart my browser, I'm going to have to do some nonsense in here in a second. So this is the tool we said before. You do this, and this creates this, this GUID right here is for a unique instance of request bin. So this is now an endpoint I can give to anything. And if I do, it will, any kind of URL that hits it, it will keep track of it. It'll keep track of the full transaction, the headers, all kind of good stuff. So what I'm going to do, and I'm going to have to log into FlightAware. If you saw it a second ago, it was asking for my. So I'm going to do this, and you can actually see this is the old one. All right, so we're going to do cover me, gentlemen, as I go off screen.
One of the most important aspects of demos is making sure that you're not putting credentials on the screen. Which is what we're doing now. And while you're doing that, so just a few more notes on RequestBin. So this is basically a dummy REST endpoint. So it lets you send stuff to it. And there are a couple others. There's one called Mockbin. So if you don't want stuff going out to some website, Mockbin is actually open source. You can set it up on your own system. And it's pretty nice. But it's super helpful with this kind of thing where you just want to know that something come through.
All right, so this is what we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to register. We're going to just do all the same stuff we did before. And I'm going to register request bin, this new request bin. So you actually see the old one. This is, and again, anything cool like this I have learned from Josh. That's how the flow of information works. Is I learn cool things from Josh. So register alert endpoint, and then we're going to go ahead and do the same set alert and. Going to do set alert ident equals, and we're going to use the same. So essentially, we're registering another copy of the same alert to this guy. So now we should have alert IDs. Oh goodness.
Well, now because you set up a new endpoint, will that change all of your existing alerts? I wonder. Is that the new dumping ground for everything?
That is an interesting question. Does changing the end this is how I would expect it to work. You set an endpoint, you register an alert, and that alert is going to that endpoint. You change endpoint, you register a new alert. Now you've got 2 alerts at 2 endpoints. That's how I'd expect it. I cannot guarantee that.
Yeah. I just because there's no place where you can go and list multiple endpoints. I think there's only one. That's what makes me wonder.
you think I may have just altered all the endpoints to this?
It's possible. I don't know.
Okay.
But either way, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, either way, we'll see if we get something from request bin. So at this point, we'll kind of let that go. We'll check in with this before we deconvene. So let us pretend for a minute that this was working. So so this part is working. We can get an alert ID. We know that we can register it. Let's go ahead and hook it up. We'll leave to this. Might be maybe the next time we address this. Like I said, I'm not sure if we're doing next week. We're definitely not doing the one after Thanksgiving. So maybe a few weeks before we do this again. And I don't necessarily want to do 3 in a row on this one thing. So the next time we come back to this, we could actually look at trying to get the actual data out of the webhook. What we can do now is just make sure that we get the workflow, get this hooked into the workflow. So we've got this. We know that that works. We know that we're registering that. So let me go in here and let's go get our workflow. Workflow editor opens another tab. Tabs have gone crazy. And I don't know about you guys. I always have a hard time finding my workflows.
You can search on top.
But I don't even remember. I don't have any.
Oh, you don't have any criteria.
I don't remember anything about what I put in here.
I have similar problems with workflows. I just don't do a lot with them usually, so then I come in and I forget.
I forget everything about what I've done. Is there a way to look at what I've got checked out?
I know you can from the main UI. I don't know if you can easily do that here. There's 10.
That's probably not the right thing. No, that's not.
I don't know. That looks pretty complex.
I've written that one before. You stole that from me.
It should be listed in Studio, right?
Yeah, it should be in Studio.
Populate flight. Okay, there you go. Populate.
Thank you, Studio.
There we go. That's the one. All right.
Studio is amazing.
And it's checked out.
All right. So, and you can see how actually, by the way, this is the. We can go ahead and close this now. This is the.
You could have opened that through Studio too.
You're right with that, Chuck. All right. Clearly, I'm adult on this today. All right. So the wait for condition is wait until 2 days before. Like I said, this is not this stuff. These data structures don't exist until then. Is if flight ID is populated. So it's looking to see is there an entry in that field of this record. Mm-hmm. If yes, we're done. If no, it runs the script to populate it. And so we saw this happen a minute ago, right?
Yeah.
Because that actually did go through that because we did a script that's less than 2 days before. So in fact, what we want to do now is we want both of these guys. So by the way, there's actually a huge problem in this. You guys know what the problem is off the top of your heads?
You don't need validation on any of the data before.
What happens if there's a transient failure of this guy?
Right.
There really ought to be a check. There ought to be, this check may not even happen. This may have to loop back here. There may have to be another, or in a second kind. There's probably no downside. There's no downside in just sending this back here. Right?
Just do a loop. I would put a delay in there, just so that it doesn't hammer things. But that makes sense.
I can do that.
A timer for like
1 minute or something.
Yeah.
And I hid that thing. How do I bring it back? Oh, there it is, right there. All right, let's. All right, so timer.
And in some future advanced version, you may eventually want to have some kind of breaking condition or something like that, where you say after X number of iterations and whatever else, let's just stop.
6 hours, let's give up.
Mm-hmm. What you can do, not a workflow person really, but I know there's a thing for it. So is that a turnstile or something?
All right.
I think it's a turnstile. I don't remember what it's called.
Is there a turnstile activity? I never heard of that one before. I would have just put something on the scratch pad and then checked it with an if.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like there's something that you put in a number and then it stops executing after it hits it. But I could be imagining that.
Yeah, that would be a good thing because as we said before, this is not a free API. So if we hit this every minute and there's some problem, like if we've done something wrong in our end, you could run into some bills this way. So that is a thing to think about. So now the nice thing about this is now we've got a path, because what we want to do is we want all the stuff we're about to do. We don't want it to come through if FAID is not populated. FA flight ID is. So now we're going to run script, and we're going to call our script include. And so we're going to run script, and we'll do that basically on the exit point of this guy. And we're going to register. Let's just call it set alert. That'll be nice and descriptive. So this is a thing. I was actually thinking about this earlier. I'm actually going to cut and paste this just to the interest of time. One thing for you guys to think about as we're going through is, clearly I don't need the nil.
I was going to say, probably don't want that one.
So now we're going to do, so this is going to be
current dot.
Current, yeah, current. And this is where I went wrong last time, I believe. Well, I'll double check in 1 second. Studio.
Help me, Obi-Wan Studio.
Oh, what did I just click? I'm looking at the module, not the table. That's the problem. All right, FA flight ID. FA underscore flight ID. All right, that is all correct. And now, guys, where did my... Okay, FA underscore flight ID. Now the question being, do I call I've got my REST message that calls the set endpoint. And I want to say that might be one of the very few free, like register alert endpoint, maybe one of the very few free APIs in this whole thing. I think you don't have to pay for this one. Is there a downside? Let's say it's, just for sake of argument, let's say it's free. Is there a downside with calling it every single time I do this? It seems like overkill.
Yeah, it does, but I don't see there necessarily being a downside. I guess at the very minimum, you would always know that it's going to have whatever your latest configuration is.
If your hypothesis, your potential hypothesis is correct, that it's kind of on the account, and we have set our account, then you almost do have to do it this way because you don't know what else may have happened.
Yeah.
So, for now, what this would do is, this would be, because I have this set up as a REST message, I would want to, where's my script include? I'm going to copy this just because I don't remember the exact, so I was doing this on the flight ID, right? You do the, in my particular case.
The more I'm thinking about this, another way to look at it would be that it's a configuration step. So if you ever change that, then you would register it, but only that one time.
Yeah, but again, what if somebody else is using the account somewhere external to this? I guess without knowing the technical answer to that,
yeah,
we don't know. I mean, ideally, you do it one time ever, and then you never change it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but also, let's say you were testing with my account. Both of us were using this account. We would have to do this every time, or we would kind of clobber each other. Let's say it doesn't persist, like it's not, like a singleton on the account, but it is per alert. You still have to do it right before the alert because you want to make sure that you have the correct endpoint, and then you file the alert.
Yeah, I suppose if there's a possibility, you would be sending these to multiple endpoints. Where I guess if it was established that this was the single, this is the single instance that's going to field these requests. That it would always be the same.
All right. So okay. Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to write some pseudocode in here.
Good discussion to have, though.
This is one of those things. And when you're doing a project by yourself, this is actually a side benefit of what we're doing here. Is that and this happens? I know that all three of us. I know for a fact all three of us have this in our life. Is you're sitting there and you're doing a thing by yourself, and you have these decisions, and some of them are arbitrary, some of them are coin tosses as to what's the best way. And when it was just you by yourself, sometimes those are the most infuriating moments. This could go, it literally doesn't matter, but I can't decide. You know what I mean? So that's
Yeah.
actually having you guys here to run this by you actually makes it better because we can at least have a consensus.
Agreed.
For three guys who work in their house by themselves most of the day, it's a nice thing to have happen.
I ask you guys in my head, but you don't ever answer.
This is also where Slack channels come in.
That's a little weird.
Come in handy.
What would Josh do? What WWJD?
All right. So I think what we're going to do here, let's check in with request bin just to see if this got anything. It may not. Oh, look at that.
Oh,
It did get something.
nice.
Oh, it landed early. So now here. Oh, so I have a minute. Let's take a few minutes. It's 5:30.
Cool.
So now we've muddied our waters because we know something happened here, but we don't know for a fact that we didn't undo the alert endpoint when we set it over here. So this is actually something I think I'm going to email. I'm going to ask FlightAware this technical question because knowing that changes how we debug this.
We can actually find out though, right? Because if it actually came to your instance, there should be some debug logging in there now.
There should be, unless something's gone wrong with our registration of the endpoint.
Right. I see what you're saying.
But what would be better, what would be nice, and let's take one quick second, is so we've got the ID, or we had the ID. I may have lost it, but can we delete alert, get alert? Oh, we can do this. Okay, so we can actually examine the alerts. So, and do the alerts have the endpoint as listed? They don't. Oh, no.
Yeah, so I think I will maintain, and we'll see what we find out after the fact. I am pretty sure that it's like setting a property in ServiceNow. Whatever you set it to, that's what it is until you set it to something else. That's my theory.
I think you might be right. So actually, our attempt to debug this may have hijacked it. And actually, if you notice, it was actually pretty chatty. There was multiple things came through.
And actually, it could have been that all of those alerts that were set came through. I don't know what the timing on these is, but because you had multiple alerts registered, that would also validate our theory. Do those things show what alert ID they came from? In the JSON that gets posted.
Let me look 1 second in request bin.
That wraps on. Well, actually, no, it doesn't wrap.
It's not even wrapped. That's here. What I'm gonna have to do is.
Because yeah, so if that's in there, then we can at least.
This is what we got. This is what we got from them.
Got it. And I don't see.
Should have
the alert in there. Oh yeah, there is the alert ID. 190486884.
Okay. So here's how we can. So I think we won't do it here. But now I can actually go and here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna set up 2 request bins. I'm gonna register one, register the second for a flight that happens later today, and then see do the alerts go to one of the 2 request bins or both of the request bins? That will solve that question definitively, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, I'm going to do that so that I know this for a fact. I can do that now without asking their support people. I'll do that. I'll get that information, and then knowing that will kind of change some of this stuff because I don't believe we saw anything hitting our API. We did not see anything hitting the API.
Got it.
So then the question is, why is it not hitting? Why are these things not hitting? So I'm going to probably do some of this just because I think this question is going to bug me. I'm probably going to do some of this debugging offline, so it doesn't have to be part of this thing. If I find the solution the next time we convene, I'll mention it, in passing, even if we're doing a different topic. And then the next time we do this, application, we can look at it a little bit. Sound like a good plan, gentlemen?
Sounds like a plan.
All right. With that, you want to do a check of the chats and see if there's anything.
Yep, just taking a look through. So far, it looks like we are up to date. Andrew mentions that we can also add that information back to YouTube. So actually, maybe in the recap, even before we meet next, put put our findings in the recap.
Yeah, put the final. I'll put the final answer into the recap, and I've started. I haven't done all of them yet, but I'm going back, and as we write the recaps, I put the recap information back on YouTube. So hopefully it's all kind of coalescing. And how do I stop presenting me? Where's the button to?
It is locked to you.
It's locked to me, and I don't want it to be.
Beer.
Oh, I know why. Okay, this should be. All right, it should no longer be locked to me. There's Chuck. I see him.
Now we're back. So yes, beer.
Okay. This Oktoberfest, I'm not loving as much as I expected. I'm gonna give it a 3.5.
Okay. The Goose Experimental Amber is a little weirdly bitter. I don't love it, but it's not bad. I'll give it a 3.75.
Wow, you guys are generous for your not liking them too much. The omission lager, I'm going to say, is your typical Saturday afternoon beer. It's not anything special, but you could certainly put away a few of these things without trying. I think that's because it's only got like 4.5 APV. So, I mean, I'd give it about a 3.5 as well. Nothing stellar, but not skunky either.
I think you shamed me, Chuck. I mean, I'm changing it down to 3.25.
And I didn't say I didn't like it. I just didn't love it.
I said I didn't love it. Yeah, but it's funny because I have a friend who rates almost everything a 5, which kind of I sit here. I don't know what you guys think about it. Do you think hard about what your 3s are versus your 2s and your 4s and your 5s?
I do, actually. Yeah.
Because I'm of the impression that if half or more of your beers are 5, your scale, you got to shift your scale over. It's too high.
Yeah, I start everything at 3, and it goes quickly down and slowly up.
Ooh, interesting. I like that. Okay. All right, gentlemen. As always, was a pleasure. And I'm gonna the second we get off this, I'm gonna do my 2 request bins. I'm gonna set that experiment up. All right. So I should know. I should know by the end of the evening what the result of that was. So thank you guys very much. My favorite way to have a weekend. Start the weekend. I love it.
You bet.
Agreed.
All right. See you guys.
See ya. Cheers.